things before the electronic cigarettes, like our Icelandic colleague before EC. It was tobacco control lost paradise, what they are moaning that they lost this paradise. So what was the situation? So first of all, Mexico is not a very heavily smoking country. You know, the epidemic of smoking, etc. But when you go to the numbers and compare with other countries, you see that, for example, prevalence decreased from 34% in the 1970s to 16% in 2010. It slightly increased because of taxes, which is an issue I don't have time to explain. But it increased between 2011 and 2016 slightly. And okay, 48% of smokers smoke daily, and they smoke less than 8 cigarettes per day average. Smoking is predominantly male, like in Asian countries, but probably not so hard. A stigma from smoking is much less than in the US. Smoking socially seen as an inconvenience, but it's not a threat or something like in English-speaking countries. And I compare with English-speaking countries, have a big English-speaking country in the north. So obesity and diabetes are the big health problems, and authorities see them this way. Now, General Tobacco Control Law was enacted in 2008, and then it applies only to tobacco products. And tobacco products are defined strictly by the FTCT, and of course the law does not contemplate electronic cigarettes because the FTCT was signed in 2003, very early. So the law that we have does not contemplate anything that has to do with electronic cigarettes. Okay, so this will create some problem. Suddenly, in 2009, bang, electronic cigarettes enter into the market and say, yeah, la vida loca, and because they're fun, you know, electronic cigarettes. And what happens? Regulators and controllers are caught with their pants down completely. They were really, really completely caught. And well, I think this happens in other countries, but in Mexico it was sometimes it's even humoristic how they were caught down. Okay, so what was the reaction? Well, the reaction was panic. And our FDA is called COFEPRIS, and they wanted to prohibit, you know, when you are afraid of something, prohibit, because it's danger, children, whatever. So, but then the General Tobacco Law did not cover this type of devices. So you can want to prohibit as much as you want, but you have to use the laws. And the law, you have to modify the law in order to be able to prohibit legally, right? So that's politically difficult in Mexico. Now, the prohibition and marketing, but not import, was finally decreed. It was prohibited by the regulatory body, but without parliamentary support. They have this faculty, but it's a very harsh faculty, and it's complicated to use it, but they did it. So it was prohibited officially in 2012. Okay, now, what was the legal basis for the prohibition? And here I have to thank my colleagues, because I'm a physicist, and I'm not very good in laws, but my colleagues in the association were two very bright lawyers, like, for example, here, Tomas. And so what was the legal basis for the prohibition? It is difficult to find in the General Tobacco Law an article that can justify a product that was not conceived when the law was enacted. So they search, and the only article of the law that the regulators could find out was the following, and it is really ridiculous. It says, the article says, it is forbidden to trade, sell, distribute, exhibit, promote, or produce any object not being a tobacco product that contains any of the elements of the brand or any type of design or auditory signal that identifies it with tobacco products. So this is a legal basis to prohibit marketing of tobacco. Now, something worth noticing is that they are not considering a tobacco product, which is a good thing. It's not intended. They would really like to smash it, but they didn't realize that it's not considered tobacco products, which is something very good. Now, let's analyze this. It's a very, very weak technical and legal basis to prohibit marketing, because the whole thing is based on this article that I just recited. And this article was probably, because it's a Kafkian thing, you need an Egyptologist to understand what are the meaning of these legal hieroglyphics, but it says it was probably conceived for a different purpose. It was probably conceived to prohibit promotional clothing, hats, trumpets used in events that are sponsored by the tobacco industry, as well as toy cigarettes and cigarette-like candies. When I was a boy, I loved chocolate cigarettes, and as an adult, I still like them and I miss them. So it was probably chocolate cigarettes were very tasty. Now, COFEPRIS never provided any technical justification. It was forced to do it afterwards because we have a law of transparency that forces institutions to explain why they are prohibiting something. So this justification, it was finally a Mexican vendor, a vaping vendor, demanded this, and now it's a very clumsy parroting of the resolutions of the COP. And now this facilitated legal challenges, this sloppiness. Now, to explain the legal changes, and I have to go quite fast here, we have the Amparo trial. It is a sort of habeas corpus. The Mexican legal system has a sort of habeas corpus that allows people affected by laws to challenge the application of the law. Now, it's not so easy because it cannot be used preventively. It has to be used inside when the authorities are violating it. But it's complicated and it's expensive. So it's not easy, but it exists. Now, having this law, in 2015, several vendors successfully invoked the Amparo trial to prevent COFEPRIS enforcing confiscating merchandise, closing shops, and now all our trials have been won. Whenever COFEPRIS has been challenged by Amparo trials, COFEPRIS has lost, because partly the very, very weak technical basis. Now, COFEPRIS, this is very problematic for the regulators. Why? Because it makes precedents. It makes legal precedents and it creates jurisprudence. If there are too many Amparo trials lost, that creates waves and attentions, and probably COFEPRIS will be forced to come out of their comfort prohibitionist zone. So it is difficult for them, right? Now, the ruling of the Supreme Court, this attracted the Supreme Court. Now, somehow in 2015, a minor vendor in the informal sector, because sales also take place in the informal sector, I'll explain what's the situation, lost an Amparo trial, and he appealed to a higher jury, and somehow things went up to the Supreme Court. That was fortuitous. It was not intended, but it happened. And then what happened? In resolving this trial, the Supreme Court declared the marketing prohibition to be unconstitutional, right? So COFEPRIS really lost the battle. And however, they are very hard-nosed people. They don't care. They keep going on. The court justify the ruling on the basis that you can, how come cigarettes have all the rights of marketing and a product that is not a tobacco product but is competing with tobacco products is denied this marketing, the right to be marketed. So it was a, oh, well, sorry. Anyway, I'll skip that. Law initiatives, there have been several law initiatives. All of them are frozen. And stakeholders, well, you know, some of them are predictable, held the peanut gallery over there, and then the industry, and then us. And then the mystery is what happens with the medical institutions that are not tobacco control and with the general political class. And finally, current situation is that You can see it here. There are very bad things, misinformation, Bloomberg is funding, etc. But on the other hand, vaping is booming. I'll just finish here. And marketing prohibitions are ignored completely. And I explained to you why Cofepris it cannot do that. And 1 million vapers. And okay, the future depends on us, and we have to do some lobbying. I'm sorry. Okay, so I think this will be for the questions. And can we hope for, yes, okay. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you. You did well.